All right, guys, we are clocking in. Matej says, I want to get out of here. I want to stop work. I've been reporting, recording, chatting the 2025 class all day. He was up very early this morning. And Matej, hopefully this is your last bit of content for the day. Although I know recruiting never sleeps, but happy National Signing Day. Matej Sis from VTScoop from 24/7 Sports. And as I like to always say, a fellow classmate of the class of 2017, Matej, what's up? How are you, brother?
Living life, running on fumes here. It's been 12 hours of nonstop action, but as I was telling you a little bit before, it's like Christmas Day over at VTScoop. We love recruiting, and to see everything come together, it's the best day of the year for us.
You guys are working hard over there. I know whether it's Matej jumping on pods, putting out articles, or Colby Crawford canvassing the entire state of Virginia. I saw him, putting out Friday Night Lights content last year, catching up with Ike Simmons and a couple other folks, and it looked pretty cold. I don't know if Colby mentioned how cold he was in the video, but I did appreciate him battling the elements on a cold weekend in Virginia. Colby Crawford, since he joined the team, I know he's been all over the place for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the man is indestructible. He's done such a great job. Huge kudos to him. He's always on the clock. I mean, I can't even complain about running on fumes. That guy has been doing it for months on end.
Fantastic. Well, I know that there were some highlights of these signees, these 2025 Hokies that we got to welcome into the boat, and know that the signing period is a little bit different now, than it used to be with the early signing period. Usually we wait until February and there's hats on the table, and it's become a little bit different of a recruiting game, obviously with the portal and with NIL. But Matej, with this 25 class, what were some of the main priorities that Coach Price's staff had going into the 2025 class, and how would you say the staff performed against some of those needs that they were looking to fill?
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, we look at wide receiver, and if you've been following recruiting for a while, you would know that Fontel Mines has just done an exceptional job getting guys like Chance Wiggins last year, Keelan Adams. This year, he gets Snook Peterkin, Micah Matthews, Jay Anderson. I mean, they absolutely crushed it yet again. Multiple four-star guys. Snook Peterkin was a guy that was for a very long time essentially locked to NC State. Like, this is a North Carolina guy, same high school as Divine Diablo. They're a powerhouse program in North Carolina. And, to be able to win battles like that and bring real talent in, just a huge coup for this staff. And, you're replacing four guys on this year's roster. You're bringing in a lot of fresh faces, a lot of four-star talent. So they did a really good job there. We actually spoke with Brent Pry earlier, and one of their biggest positions that they were looking to fill was actually in the secondary. And it kind of came late this year. We had JoJo last night, Jordan Krim from South Carolina. He committed last night, signed today. And then the surprise of the day was actually four-star Jamari Deloach. And he's out of Oscar Smith in the 757. He was committed to Cincinnati. Always talked with Virginia Tech for the longest time, but those were kind of the two last pieces to tie everything together. So they really looked at wide receivers, the defensive backfield, and then bringing in two quarterbacks to bring a little more diversity in that room.
Let's start right there, Matej, with quarterback. Obviously Keldon Ryan is a guy who we keep hearing about. I know Peyton Falzone decommitted a few weeks ago, but with Keldon Ryan, kind of being one of the guys we want to build around here in this 2025 class, can you shed some light on our quarterback commits, knowing that has been the hottest topic of conversation in the Virginia Tech sphere over the past week, knowing who are we building around and who are we going to have on our roster going into 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. And, to make matters more complicated, Virginia Tech brings in two quarterback recruits in the same class. But, the staff has constantly preached about competition. and bringing guys into, the positional rooms that they want to see the best man win. And Keldon Ryan, first commitment of the 2025 class, out of DeSoto High School. He transferred there for his senior year. He's a guy that's eerily similar to Kyron Drones when you watch him. He probably has a bit better throwing mechanics than Drones did at the same age in high school. But big time deep ball type of guy, really poised in the pocket. You can tell he's done a lot of training on his technique, on his form. A guy that can also hurt you with his legs. He has 14 rushing touchdowns this year, throwing around 73% completion percentage. Definitely benefited from having more talent around him. There are other programs such as Baylor to tie it back to Drones that were really in on him. Some other Texas programs that were monitoring him, but he's been in the boat for over a year and a half and really stuck it out with Virginia Tech. Again, huge credit to the staff for holding on to him with all the other schools that were interested, but big time quarterback commitment. I know they're always going to say they're going to reach out for, outside the footprint for, national recruiting search for quarterbacks. And then you have AJ Brand, the other quarterback from South Carolina, and he's viewed in a lot of different ways by a lot of different programs. South Carolina really wanted him up until that pen hit the paper. They viewed him as more of a wide receiver / defensive back type of guy. And I think that kind of tells you the athleticism that he has. He put up video game numbers at Irmo High School in South Carolina. I mean, he has like over 50 total touchdowns. He's throwing 72% completion percentage. He's kind of a longer windup compared to Keldon Ryan, so definitely needs some refinement there. But when you turn on the tape and you see what he's able to do, he gets the ball out. He has great arm talent, dynamic athlete, and can really hurt you in multiple ways, and is really smart about the game. So two quarterbacks that are slightly different. I would say Keldon is more of a pass first guy that can hurt you with the legs, and then AJ Brand, just any facet of the game, he can make a big play at any point.
I think looking at this being my third recruiting class, I know we've seen a gradual incline in the average rating, and I think that's one of the main takeaways from this class is that it's a small but mighty class. Can you speak on how what it means in this era of recruiting, where we're really going for guys who are quality recruits rather than quantity? You want to supplement with the portal where you can, obviously, but what are your thoughts on the steady incline of the quality of guys we're getting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for one, this staff can only allocate so many resources towards these higher end quality recruits. You think about some of the bigger programs across the nation, and yeah, you look at them on signing day, they're normally your 1 through 25s. They're able to shell out a lot of money, resources, and get some of the top guys. But I think Virginia Tech has to play it smart, and they really build selective relationships with a lot of these guys for multiple years. And of course, there were some guys that they wish they could have kept, or some other guys that they wish could have committed. But overall, this is kind of the approach that we've seen last year. We'll probably see next year a smaller, higher quality class, really investing into smaller numbers to really ensure that you get the guys. And then also making sure, Virginia Tech is huge on bringing guys that are team captains, multi-sport athletes, and really just top tier guys within the state of Virginia, and spending all their energy towards them.
You mentioned multi-sport athletes. I know Jimmy Mullen is also a wrestler. We have a guy named Micah Matthews in this class who is very high on MLB draft boards as well. And I know that John Sheff was featured today in the signing day highlight. If you didn't get to catch the Triumph signing day highlights today, that was going on live all morning, Matej, any other fun or cool highlights, like John Sheff reaching out reading out the pick for Micah Matthews, who's joining the baseball team. Any other nuances there that were fun today?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of good interviews, especially with families. I know a lot of people today really like Jeff Overton's dad. Can't really repeat some of the language that he used on the broadcast, but he was fired up. And, obviously a lot of families were emotional. It's a huge day for them. But overall, I think the whole thing was a highlight, to be honest with you. It was nearly 6 hours of just constant guys coming in, sharing their stories and getting to live out their dream of signing with their dream school.
Absolutely. So, going forward here with this class, I would say this is a success, this 2025 class, just with the quality of guys and filling some roster needs. Now, we're all looking at our watch and counting down until South Carolina week 1. I think we all kind of need a break right now, though.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of football, and we still haven't found out our bowl opponent yet. But between now and when the whistle blows for spring ball, looking at the roster, looking at the transfer portal, without anyone leaving and announcing any departure from Virginia Tech, because hey, listen, that's kind of where we are right now. People are leaving, people are coming. That's the way the landscape is. What are your top 2 or 3 positions of need immediately as we enter the offseason? And I think I have an idea of the first 2.
Yeah, I mean, I can stick with the offensive side of the ball. I would say running back is a crucial one. Obviously, Jeff Overton, a guy that signed today, is one of the best running back talents that I've seen sign with Virginia Tech in quite a long time. I implore anyone to go to the huddle and watch his film. It's really, really, really fun. Anytime you have over like a 10-minute highlight tape of just you running for touchdowns or running over people, you're probably a pretty good player. And he's a guy that could play early. But I think at the same time, there's a lot of young backs there, and you can't really replace Bashal Tootin, but you can find, a veteran presence that can help guide people along. I know Malachi Thomas, he got a little dinged up late in the year. Maybe he's the guy that they turn towards, but I think there could be some help there. And obviously we've seen the transfer portal isn't even open yet, and we've already seen 3 guys intend to enter the portal on the defensive line. I think that's going to be huge there. Obviously, APR and the season that he had, I cannot believe he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year. Still in search of one at Virginia Tech. And then Aeneas Peebles as well. I think he quietly had one of the best seasons for an interior defensive lineman. So replacing those 2 guys is a tough task, but I think some veteran bodies at running back and on the defensive line are much needed.
And then going into 2025, who are some impact freshmen that you could see, I'm not going to say day 1 starter, right? That would be a little outlandish, but any of these guys potentially cracking the 2 deep, getting some, first or second team reps as we enter spring ball. I know a lot of them are enrolling early. I think 60% of the class is enrolling early, which is great. But also, any guys that we might see in September or October, or, as early as September or October of next year from this class.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned Jeff Overton. I think it's a bit easier as a younger player to see the field at running back. I think, as long as you learn the playbook, it's really natural talent that takes over. And if he is as good as advertised, I really think that he could push towards a number 2, number 3 type role. Sheldon Robinson, Woodbury Forest guy, safety. We've seen it every single year. Mose Phillips, Quentin Reddish this past year. Freshmen somehow seem to be able to play safety in this Virginia Tech defensive scheme. And Sheldon Robinson is a big guy. He's about 6'3", almost 200 pounds. Like, he looks college ready, just like Reddish did last year, and has a lot of the same attributes. So if they're able to bring him up to speed, obviously it seems like there's going to be some open positions in that safety room. So we'll see. I think Sheldon Robinson certainly has probably the best chance Overton's another guy, and a guy like Brett Clatterbaugh. I know it's again tough in the linebacker room, but he's a guy that looks college ready, about 6'3" and 220. I'm excited about him, and I think there's to bring some stability into the linebacker core. I think Brett could potentially see the field pretty early on.
I think every Virginia Tech fan wants Brett Clatterbaugh to be a 4-year contributor on this football team and maybe even an eventual draft pick. Brett Clatterbaugh did, in his commitment video, have his, I don't know if it was a Silverado or an F-150 or whatever rigged up truck he had with the Virginia Tech flag waving off the back. But I'm excited to see that guy in orange and maroon here. Now, I got a couple more for you, Matej. This next one is NIL based. First of all, where does Virginia Tech? I think from a staff or just where Virginia Tech lines up in the ecosystem right now. How confident does Virginia Tech feel as we approach this next portal cycle when it comes to NIL? And two, who are some guys that we should be looking at on the current roster that are going to be a high priority to retain? Just because last year, this was a huge focus, right? Everyone's coming back. Every single guy, seemed to be retained, from being taken away in the transfer portal. How do you see that either changing or staying the same in this next cycle?
Yeah, I think Virginia Tech is definitely competitive. It doesn't feel like they're in that top tier. Obviously, feels like they're maybe tier 2, towards the middle of that. But I mentioned a lot of guys that are moving on, whether it's NFL graduation, and I think that opens up some possibilities. I know you kind of alluded to it, the hot topic of quarterback, and you kind of wonder what that looks like. With Kyron Drones, Pop Watson showing what he did against Virginia, I think, in today's day and age, everyone wants to play right away. And so figuring out those types of battles and the types of guys that you want to keep there. If you could have both in a perfect world, I think that sounds fantastic. But, other guys that maybe people don't think about are left tackle Xavier Chaplin. I think he really improved his stock this year. He's someone that's super important to whoever the quarterback is next year. And, even beyond that, I think, any team would want a guy like Xavier Chaplin on their roster. And then, just defensively, I think there's going to be some new fresh faces and some ability to find guys, especially defensive line, maybe a linebacker or two and a safety, even a cornerback. So it's going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of flexibility, and it's really intriguing to see how it all shape out.
Excited to see it shake out. Hopefully limited chaos on the
Limited.
Virginia Tech side. And, we are on the winning side instead of the losing side when it comes to the transfer portal. Last thing here, Matej, with regards to these recruits in the 2025 class, these new Hokies who are going to start their careers at Virginia Tech this fall, what should some fans know about some of these guys beyond their on-field abilities? Is there any interesting stories, any fun hobbies that Mitch may have mentioned today on the broadcast? Any guys with unique personalities? I already mentioned Brett Clatterbaugh, but anything you got for me on that front?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people know the story behind Micah Matthews, and obviously he's going to be an early enrollee and jump straight away with the baseball team. But I think a lot of people saw Snook Peterkin and said, "Oh, he wants to play basketball. Like, this guy's a legitimate basketball guy." I know back in the day we've seen guys like Devin Wilson who's been able to do both. Isaiah Ford kind of wanted to do that. Trey Turner as well. But Snook Peterkin is a legitimate basketball player in addition to being a very good football player. Obviously, football first. We'll see if it works out. I think that'd be really intriguing. But, to have 2 4-star wide receivers, multi-sport athletes, and at the collegiate level is pretty interesting. There's guys like Carter Stallard, who's been to Virginia Tech 9,000 times, living in Christiansburg. But him training with Sergio Render, VT alum, also doing stuff like karate. There's a lot of interesting stories with a lot of these guys. Don't want to take up too much of this time, but check out VTScoop. We have in-depth articles about all these guys. Shameless plug, but a lot of good stories there.
That's Matej S247 on X as well. Matej always delivering the scoops. Always appreciate you coming on, my friend. And I told you 15 minutes. We did manage to steal 21 minutes here. So always appreciate the time, Matej. And hopefully we'll get together next weekend in the big city.
Let's do it.